Hey y'all, I'm Jerdy, and in this video, we're going to talk about Prot Paladin in Phase 8 and potentially the last phase of Season of Discovery. So let's dive down into it because there is a lot to talk about, because in Phase 8, we are gearing the Protection Paladin a lot differently than we have been the past few phases. If you follow my YouTube channel, my Wowhead guides, or if you're in the Light Club Discord, you'll know that we've often promoted the Tier 2 Retribution 2-set and 4-set bonuses for Protection Paladin. Well, Blizzard made a lot of nerfs, restrictions, and changes to a lot of classes and specs, runes, and abilities, and those ones for Ret were not shy of those nerfs. And the nerfs were so bad that if we ran those builds now, we would do just as much damage as a traditional tank set with all tank runes, just taking significantly more damage. So there's no trade-off here. So with that being said, all of the previous builds we've done since Phase 5 through Phase 7 are dead in the water. We will not run Retribution sets anymore for Protection Paladin. If you were a fan of those builds, I know you're going to hate that, but if you hated those builds and you just wanted traditional tank builds, then you're going to love that. So before we talk about what you're going to look like in full Abyss, let's first talk about what you need to look like before you enter Scarlet Enclave, our new raid in Phase 8. I posted like 3 lists on the Light Club Discord. I posted a version of it on Wowhead, but the main theme with all of these lists is that you're running 4-set Tier 3 and 2-set Tier 2.5 just to get those set bonuses that they offer. The 2-set from the Tier 7 makes it so we never miss a taunt, and the 4-set reduces the cooldown of our shield wall, our divine protection, by 3 minutes and our avenging wrath by 2 minutes. This will be very, very helpful for progression. And then the 2.5 2-set gives us 10% stats when we cast Blessing of Sanctuary on ourselves, and that does stack with Kings or Heart of the Lion. For the other 2 body slots, you can pretty much run anything, ideally if it has block value or if it's high item level. You could easily just run 6-set Tier 3 and 2-set 2.5. And I know our 6-set bonus on the Redemption gear sucks. It sucked in Nax too. It still doesn't work on Lotheb. I tried last night. It didn't proc at all. But it's such a high item level that it has a lot of green stats and high raw stats on them. You can see right here, I have leg plates of the Destroyer from AQ10 on here. I've never talked about these, but they have 24 block value, plus 12 spell damage and 15 defense, 30 stamina. That's a good piece to use with everything else. If you want to see all the lists, you can go on the Light Club Discord and check out the pinned messages on there. But remember, the main theme is 4-set Tier 3 and 2-set 2.5. One important item I do want to talk about though is the Band of Redemption. This is like the one ret item we're going to run because of that extra Hodge proc that it has on it. It's very strong for our threat, and even though we are running a more traditional tank build because Blizzard kind of forced us to, we still want to focus on our threat. If you got unlucky and just didn't get Hunger and Cold, the Truth Bearer is still very, very strong. And the best part is you can get it now for 150 reals. So it won't be too hard to pick up this weapon. Now, I do need to talk about one item in particular, and that's this trinket right here, Glyph of Deflection. This item is inarguable Abyss for pre-raid and for endgame of Phase 8. It is strong, too strong even. It's not going to feel great not to have this, sorry, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have this. It just offers really good stats in that it has 21 stamina, gives you 3% chance to block, and has an on-use effect of giving you 400 block value for 20 seconds, which just goes really well with our Tier 3.5 set. We're calling it 3.5, not Tier 4, because Tier 4 is TBC. They took that already. But if you don't have this for pre-raid, then your DPS threat trinket would be Hand of Reborn Justice. It's a better version of Hand of Justice, and you get this from a quest chain offered at Light's Hope Chapel. And then the other trinket that will be Abyss for pre-raid is Lodestone of Retaliation. There really is no other option here. If you don't have this, you'll run your Onyxia Blood Talisman. There is a better version of the Onyxia Blood Talisman. I don't even know what it's called. Oh, here it is. It's called Leonid's Charm. It's just 2 more stamina, like 3 more defense, and it has that 1 hit, but you have to pick this or the better Hodge, and this is barely better than the Onyxia trinket. I just wouldn't recommend picking this. If you did pick it, it's not the end of the world, right? It's not, you'll be fine. But this is just a much better Hodge, whereas this is just a barely better Oni trinket. Oh, and how could I forget Stylene's Impending Scarab, the block trinket, right? 5% block, 24 block value, 13 defense. This is also great to pair with Glyph of Deflection. It's also great to pair with Lodestone of Retaliation because we are getting that 25% avoidance reduction in the Scarlet Enclave. So this will help push us back to getting avoidance cap. So now let's talk about what we look like in full BIS. But let's first talk about what our new tier set has to offer. So our tier set focuses on block value, block chance, and our Shield of Righteousness ability. So the 2 set is that our Shield of Righteousness also increases your block value by 30% for 6 seconds. Now this is important because this is intentional. Shield of Righteousness is on a 6-second cooldown, and this set bonus does not actually buff your Shield of Righteousness ability. If you don't know, Shield of Righteousness is scaled from block value, but because the buff is only 6 seconds long, we actually don't get a stronger Shield of Righteousness from the 2 set, just more mitigation. However, the 4 set, your Shield of Righteousness deals percentage increased damage equal to your block chance. So right now, I'm at 35% block, but that's without Holy Shield and Readout, which will put me at 95% block, which means that your Shield of Righteousness ability will almost do 100% more of its damage. That's where the buff comes from. And then your 6 set, your Avenging Wrath no longer triggers Forbearance. That alone is huge. Lasts 15 seconds longer. That alone is also huge, and increases your block value by 30%. More block value buffs. This is a really strong set for Prot Paladins, and it answers a lot of complaints that Prots have had in the past, like, hey, can we actually have a reason to use our protection runes? And hey, can we actually use our main source of mitigation? Because without this, blocking kind of sucks. But I do have my complaints, which I'll talk about near the end of this video. But right now, just looking at this is a very welcomed set bonus for Prot Paladins. So the pieces that we'll want to run will be our helmet, shoulders, chest, waist, legs, and boots. Our off pieces will be our bracers and our hands, and these off pieces are very, very strong. Let's look at the hands first. 4% chance to block, 30 block value, 17 defense. And here's the weird thing about both these pieces, which I haven't seen before in a classic setting, is that even though it's a tank piece, it has more strength than stamina. And I'm actually very welcoming of this because this is really going to help out our threat. The bracers, 24 strength, 14 stamina, has that 1% expertise but 27 block value. If you look at our tier bracers, they only have 7 block value. We don't really want just 7 block value. I'll take 27 over 7, right? And then some other important items on here will be the Band of Redemption. This is our red ring from Naxxramas. The reason why we really want this is that we're giving up our Hodge and our Trinket slot and our Hodge and our weapon that Hungering Cold had. So we still want that extra swing proc somewhere, so we're going to keep it in the ring slot. The other ring is a new ring in the raid. It's also a block ring having 18 block, 1% hit, 1% expertise, and 15 defense. But because of all those green stats, it only gives us 12 stamina. So it's not the best stamina ring in the game. And then we also get a new cloak in this raid that has block value on it, 32 block value, and this is the only cloak with block value in the game. The only other cloak that has block on it is Overlord's Embrace, which has 2% chance to block on it, not block value. This is also still a good cloak to have if you have it. And then the other trinket right here, Cinders of the Fallen Crusade, is a new trinket. There are some other dust trinkets like Ashes of Arrogance, Dust of Defiance, Desecrated Prayer Book. Dust of the Defiant is the tank trinket. It does have 21 stamina, plus 3 movement speed, 2% chance to hit, and 19 defense. However, we really want that second trinket to be a threat trinket because we need that. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But if this is a one-time pick, we're going to pick the DPS variant. If for some reason you don't have one of these, Hand of Reborn Justice, Lodestone of Retaliation from our previous list will still be very, very good to run. And then 2 more trinkets I want to talk about. One is Heart of Light, a new trinket from the raid, and it has 32 stamina on it. That is the most stamina a trinket has in the game. It gives you 2% expertise, 16 defense, but its on-use effect is basically your own personal rallying cry. It gives you 2,500 health for 20 seconds. This is a great trinket for Prog and a great trinket for tanks to have. And this actually isn't on Wowhead right now as I'm making this video. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm gonna upload that right now. And again, I know I keep putting off Stylings. This is the best trinket really to pair with Glyph of Deflection because they're both tank trinkets, and the amount of block and block chance on this buffs you mitigation wise and damage wise. Again, the reason why I'm not trying to hype it up too much is because I don't think y'all are going to be doing Blackwing Lair anymore, because with Naxxramas and with this new raid that we have no idea how hard or fast or slow it's going to take for us to clear it, I understand if doing Blackwing Lair is just not in your timetable. If you do have this though, use it. But if you don't feel bad. We have other options. Hand of Reborn Justice is very, very strong as our threat trinket as well. Unfortunately, I'll talk about this later, Glyph of Deflection is just so strong that there will be a difference in paladins that do and don't have it. As I was making the Sims, I have what I call a godless build, Glyph of Deflection, GOD, a godless build, and a with God build. And the difference is noticeable. Our new weapon, High Commander's Guard, has 83 DPS as a 1.2 weapon speed. That's perfect for Protection Paladin. Our Hammer of the Righteous are going to hit a lot harder, and we're going to get a lot of seal procs with that fast weapon. It has a really interesting chance on hit. It's like a better version of the Quel'Serrar weapon. Increases defense by 20 and armor by 750 for 10 seconds. I wish that'd be block value, not armor, but sure. Okay. And then on-use items are a theme here because Aegis of the Scarlet Bastion, where it increases the amount of damage absorbed by your shield by 20% for 15 seconds. That's just a block value increase worded differently, while also having 27 block value. When all these pieces are put together, you will sit at 578 block value. That's without the 30% you get from Shield of Righteousness. So add on 30% of that, and that's going to be your standard block value that you're always going to have, which is not a small amount. You're actually going to block a decent amount of damage. And then when you use your on-use item and you do plus 400, you're blocking 1,000 damage per block. So we actually get a sense of meaningful mitigation in this set, which has been something we have been begging for since phase 4. Real quick, I want to talk about some stats in case you don't know what these stats are and their caps are. If you feel like you know what I'm talking about, you can go ahead and skip this portion of the video. But we're going to talk about first our melee hits, then our expertise, our defense, and then all of our avoidance. So right now we are sitting at 6% hit in this build, and that is our soft hit cap. Ideally, we do want 9 because Hammer of the Righteous and Avenger Shield are registered as ranged hit abilities, meaning you want 9% hit so they never miss. We are, however, expertise capped at 14%, meaning no dodges and no parries. Next, defense. Defense cap, meaning we can't get critically struck, is 440. We're at 576. We are not in danger of being crit cap or defense cap, the same thing. Now, avoidance cap or crush cap means you don't get crushing blowed. That's different. Avoidance cap or crush cap is your combination of miss, dodge, parry, and block. And it has to total to 102.4%. CTC, combat table coverage, a lot of words for the same thing. Because Holy Shield and Redoubt give us 60% additional block, it's much easier for us to hit that crush cap than other tank classes. However, this new raid has a 25% avoidance reduction, 5% chance to get hit, and 20% chance dodge reduction. So we need to be at 127.4% to be crush cap, avoidance cap, hits combat table coverage. That's where items like Stylings, Overlord's Embrace, and your ZG rings come into play, or even the AQ40 shield that has 3% block on it. That's where Prot Paladin does get a cool advantage because even with that 25% avoidance reduction, we can still hit that cap and not be crushing blowed. So now let's talk about our shoulder enchants and which ones will be our best. If you don't know what this is, you took a break in phase 7 or before. In Naxxramas, they introduced this new shoulder enchant that lets you put on any of our previous set bonuses from Molten Core all the way through AQ. Before, we recommended the seal stacking one, which was Seal Bearer. That is dead, like I mentioned earlier, so we're not going to run that anymore. The options we have now will be Radiant Defender, or Holy Shield no longer has charges and it always lasts its full duration and is buffed by 80% of your shield block value. That's our default one. Reckoner is interesting because it's always going to sim higher because of the boss's attack speed plus you, the player, hitting a certain attack speed as well. This assumes that all bosses are at a 2.0 weapon. So swing timer, which they might not be. And with a certain amount of bonus attack speed that you have, it meshes well with your hits with the Reckoning procs. This is unstable, however, so right now I'm not recommending it as the main one to run. I still recommend Radiant Defender, but I'm sure it'll come in handy once you have fights down a little better to get that extra damage in. Soul of Bastion will be one of our best mitigation ones, where we take 10% reduced damage while Holy Shield is active. This would be your best one if there's a caster boss, because casters aren't going to melee hit us, so we're not going to benefit from Reckoner or Radiant Defender, so we might as well just do something that absorbs more damage. This one right here, Soul of the Exile, this got a 25% buff, where it reduces the cooldown of your exorcism by 3% and increases the damage done by 75%. This is good if there's like a threat throttle mechanic between you and your other tank and the bosses are taunt immune and you need to get threat back, because remember, Reckoner and Radiant Defender require getting hit. So you can't generate that threat back if you're not the one getting hit. And you're probably not trying to generate threat back if you are getting hit. Whereas Exile is just an ability that gets buffed. For your rotation, it's a standard rotation. You always want to keep Holy Shield up. On pull, you want to hit Hammer of the Righteous first, and then Shield of Righteousness. However, once you get at least 4 sets of your tier 3.5, I think Shield of Righteousness now takes prio over Hammer of the Righteous. And then for our talents, here's what I would recommend right here. You really don't need to spec fully into Anticipation. You probably should go fully into Toughness. We have so much defense, I'm sitting at 572 right now, that we don't need that extra little amount. Let's just go for full armor, because right now, with all my world buffs, I'm sitting at 13,000 armor. That's without an armor pot and inspiration. So we're pretty much able to hit armor cap with this set. And then we avoid Consecration. It's just not a good ability. Even at full rank, you're not going to generate threat from it with AoE. We're going to go into Vindication for the AP buff that we get. And then you could either go into Improved Seal of the Crusader to make your reds happy, or you can go into Deflection to get more parry. I like to use Improved Crusader. I want to make it so my reds don't have to judge it. I can just judge it myself, so they get more damage out of it. And then some general tips if you're kind of newer to the class. Get this weak aura right here. It's called Tankadin 2. I can put it in my description. It's also very helpful because it reminds you if you don't have Righteous Fury on, which there have been pulls in game where I've not had Righteous Fury and it's caused some issues. It also makes a really annoying sound too, that I'm sure you're hearing right now. So our overall strengths as a Protection Paladin this phase, like previous phases, we're always going to be that amazing snap threat tank, especially when we pop all of our cooldowns, including our on-use items like Glyph of Deflection and Aegis of the Scarlet Bastion. You pop those two, you pop Wings, you open up with Shield of the Righteous. Nobody is catching up to you in threat. One weakness though is that we run on use items, and if you don't have those on-use items, then your threat is not going to be as strong. Now, when it comes to snap threat, is it going to be much of an issue? I don't think so, unless your raid just cures everybody else but you. But over time, like let's say there's a longer fight, like a threat throttle fight or a threat wipe fight, and you need to catch up back on threat. I think if you didn't have your on uses, then you're going to see some struggle regaining threat. Think Kel'Thuzad after a mind control or Oro after a sandblast. That might be an area where we might struggle. I really strongly, highly recommend, no matter what your guild's loot system is, even if you are like the main tank in a pug run that you consistently go to, that whoever leads it prios you the first 4 pieces of your tier to get those set bonuses. At least with that, you will be stable in threat ahead of your DPS, because you can get the off pieces that no one's gonna want but you, and your weapon that no one's gonna want but you, your shield. So that way, as you get other gear, you're never gonna fall behind in terms of your DPS. We're going to be really good at 3 target, 4 target, max 5 target cleave fights for AoE. Anything bigger than that though is where you want like a druid or a warrior as your co-tank, because like I said earlier, Consecration sucks. It does not generate threat. You'll just tickle the enemies with it, and we have no other large AoE abilities outside of Holy Shield. That's after you get the threat established. Our mitigation will be good once you start getting that gear, but going into the raid fresh, you're gonna feel a little weak when you get hit by things. But I don't think we're the only tank class that's gonna be like that. I have some complaints. I don't like that there's a big difference of an on-use geared paladin and a non-on-use geared paladin. I think there are some really easy ways to buff us. For example, if you didn't know, our 2 set is our Ulduar 4 set, but the Ulduar 4 set lets the shield block value buff Shield of Righteousness. So they've used this set in the past where it does buff Shield of Righteousness. Why did they take that away in this version? And my longest complaint ever is Hammer of the Righteous. It got nerfed after Sunken Temple, if you've been playing that long, from ×4 your weapon DPS to ×3. And you know why? Because Rets were using it. Well, you know what? Rets don't use it anymore. So why is it still ×3? It needs to hit a lot harder than that. It just should be better because that's what it was in Wrath of the Lich King as well. We play like a Wrath Protection Paladin, but we have 2 Wrath-like abilities that are both in a tier set bonus and a mainline ability that are both nerfed versions of those abilities. And I really think if those 2 things were tweaked, that would solve most of our issues when it comes to that threat catch-up situation that I think we're going to have. And then I genuinely actually don't get this. Why was Improved Sanctuary nerfed by 10%? Look at our damage. What was that gonna do? Like, it didn't do anything. Why did that was such a pointless nerf? I really think they might have thought, unless there's a huge AoE fight where that would just really rack up in damage, I think that was just a miscalculation on Blizzard's behalf because we're not the top DPS spec tank right now. There are like 2 others ahead of us by like 400 at least DPS on 120-second fights. So why did we catch any nerf in any way, shape, or form? Another buff though is when these fights get a lot shorter, around 60 seconds, that we see a really big shoot in our damage. But me personally, I really don't care about that because the raid's gonna be solved. And if this is the last raid, then I don't care about farm status. I want to be strong as we're progging. But I think that's it from me, you guys. If this is my last Prot Paladin guide video, I'm going to be so sad. I don't want SOD to end. And I really hope this raid is cool. I apologize if this is rushed. I just wanted to get this out like really fast so that way y'all can see this because I know there are people still running Seal Bearer. I've seen logs. I'm like doom scrolling through logs like, no, don't run that. You're just taking so much damage. So I wanted to get this out so hopefully more people see this if they're not reading Wowhead, or if they're not in the class discords, they know, oh shoot, I need to swap before I enter that raid tomorrow. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hi. Follow me on twitch.tv/dirtyjd. I am streaming the raid when it comes out. I am streaming all the way through SOD. If this is my last Prot Paladin guide video, it won't be my last SOD video, but I thank y'all for joining me on this Prot Paladin journey. Why am I getting emotional right now? And I will see y'all. I'm gonna stop the video and I'll see y'all in the next video.